Greetings everybody, you are back on the lawn with John. Hey, been down in Naples all week, down at the FPMA event. Told you guys I'd be posting some stuff, getting kind of back onto the grass thing. It's been sort of a busy week for me down here. A lot of time with customers and, you know, kind of doing the whole thing. Got product to sell and problems to solve. But one thing that we were really all paying attention to was how beautiful the Zoysia was at this particular resort here, the Naples Grand, where we held the event this year. And you know, as you can see behind me, it's in pretty decent shape. Now, it was actually just mowed yesterday, so you can kind of see it's might look a little ridgy or off color because the mower was kind of bouncing through this. Now, this particular turf grass here on site I don't think has been in very long because it doesn't have all of the signs that you typically see on Empire Zoysia down here. None the least of which is, first of all, we're 1 month into the fertilizer blackout in Florida. So down here where there are restrictions, that started basically June 1. That'll continue all the way through to September 30th. And no nitrogen can be applied. There's already pretty much a system-wide ban on phosphorus as well, but this is just going to be coming off of whatever feeding. Now, this is not one of my customers' lawns, as far as I know. I didn't really do any research into finding out who takes care of this place, so who knows? It could possibly be. But the one thing that we really notice about it most of all would be the lack of the buildup of thatch. And normally what happens here, especially in the summertime, is when the grass begins to build up on itself, because of the way that it was mowed, you begin to see, you know, fungus and different things like that. But here, what I saw yesterday, even though the grass was wet, it was actually being bagged and hauled off. Well, kind of two schools of thought on that whole thing. Number one, you're pulling away an awful lot of potential future nutrient for the grass if you're bagging and hauling away. But then on the flip side of that, you're not adding back into what can be a persistent problem, especially in Zoysia, because one of the trends that tends to happen is that the grass gets treated very much either like St. Augustine down here. It's fed on the same type of schedule. Or up north, it's done more like, it's treated like a bluegrass or a fescue and just kind of overfed, forcing this grass to grow a little bit faster than it wants to. And because it's a dense blade and it's a nice tight root, you know, this is a plant that needs to be focused solely on lateral growth. So traditionally, when I'm dealing with companies that are saying, well, how do I vary a program between Zoysia and St. Augustine, or my Zoysia and my Centipede, or this or that, and it comes down as simply as swapping nozzles, changing tips on guns, and not giving this grass quite as much, because, like I said, it's slow growth, it's tight growing, you can keep it in this sort of lower cut pretty easily, as long as you're not feeding it too much, okay? So that slower growth, that more nurturing the soil and letting it get tight down underneath and having the plant kind of come together on its own, you don't need your grass to have a lot of top growth. That's just what people have been trained to think. But the reality is, the slower the top growth, you're ultimately going to end up having a happier plant. It's not going to need to take quite as much water. It'll cover the soil a little bit better. You will have considerably less weeds because of that. And I mean, even looking around here, the density of this turf, it's hard to find a weed in here. Now, up a little closer to the main building and walking around where it borders different things, you'll find some crept in, maybe old St. Augustine. I have a feeling that a lot of this was Floritam at one point and then all swapped out. But it is beautiful. And I would encourage any of you with Zoysia to really cut back on your nitrogen rates. You know, half of what's being typically recommended tends to work really well. Spoon feeding it a little bit more, giving more micronutrient supplementation, and if you do have a heavy thatch problem that you can't say mechanically get rid of through dethatching, which again is not something I suggest unless it is really, really bad. You should be using products like the dethatch to get down in there and start chewing that up, because there are tons of nutrients tied up in those old grass blades. So I just wanted to give kind of a quick thing. I found this grass just super beautiful. The landscape was very scenic, everything that they've got going on down here. Wanted to share that. But for you Zoysia guys out there, or homeowners are dealing with Zoysia, if you have questions about that, adjusting your program to get the grass growing at an optimum performance, please leave a comment, send me an email. I'd love to kind of walk you through some of those programs, whether it's 100% liquid, or going through with your granulars and using liquid supplementation. I can help with that. So feel free to shoot me a comment or a message, and I'll see you guys all out there real soon.